Anyway, yeah. So what are we on? Episode 4?
Episode 3, part 2.
That's right. Episode 3, part 2. We're out here
Eating. Stirring up the punch bowl.
You got your dong hanging in the punch bowl.
Hey, I'm just saying, we stirred up the last conversation, so I don't see how we're not doing it again.
Yeah, I mean, I think this one's going to be interesting talking small forwards and centers because there's a lot of dominant players at those positions that may be deserving of the best scoring player at that position.
For sure.
And so, yeah, we can get right into it. I'll say this first off. I've been told that Kevin Durant is the best scorer of all time. Is he the best scorer at the small forward position if we're putting him at small forward?
I don't see why not. Most people would consider him that. He's just so efficient. And he's averaged 30 multiple times in like a season. I guess the only thing that would knock him, in my opinion, would maybe be 4 scoring titles only. But then again, there's not that many people in the history of the NBA that has more, I would say, than 5. One person. The only person that'll be would probably be Jordan, who has 10.
Right.
But in my opinion, but for me to defend Kevin Durant, he's just so efficient. As slender as he is, the Slim Reaper, being so thin, being able to do everything from handling the ball, bringing it up, shaking you. And he does sometimes get away with, how you like to say, putting some pepper on the ball.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, he doesn't also have to do that. He can catch and shoot, come off screens, post up, for even how small he is. But with that 7-foot frame, I mean, it makes him pretty hard to guard whenever he's shooting over somebody. And he's really quick. And I think that with the Achilles, he hasn't missed a beat. He's still the same player. After really taking 2 years off.
I feel like, are we really using the eye test with Kevin Durant? Because, him going to the Warriors puts a real bad sour taste in my mouth. It obviously doesn't take away
the scoring, though.
Right. So it doesn't take away any of his ability to score the basketball, but I do feel like, playing with elite guys makes it easier, even though he was the alpha when he went there on that team. But I do agree. I think Kevin Durant is the best scorer at the small forward position. I wouldn't say ever out of any position, but I do think his repertoire of how he can score the ball from any level, from 3 in transition, get to the rim, it's kind of unmatched with how tall he is and his ability to really handle the pill and create his own shot. I think he's got a lot of Tracy McGrady in his game. And he's that kind of prototypical matchup nightmare that I don't know really how you stop him in this era of basketball. When he's at his peak, when he's healthy.
No, I agree. I agree with that. But as far as like you going by the eye test, and I know you say you kind of, and a lot of people would agree with you that they put a lot of him going to the Warriors against him. They hold that against him. Me, I did it first, but then I was just like, it is what it is. That's the kind of era of basketball we live in. I mean, he's in a big 3 again, so I'm pretty sure he's going to get the same, whether or not James Harden did go there, and I think that might be also tarnish his overall legacy. But I mean, that's just the era we live in.
Right.
I mean, I disagree with you on any of that. But as far as just straight scoring and the scoring ability, I just think that it's unmatched as far as a small forward goes. And he's versatile. You can put him in any position, I think, even at the point. Granted, his probably playmaking as far as like distributing the ball isn't as well as most point guards or even LeBron for that. You can still put him there, and I think he's just really versatile. He could give you so much on the offensive end. But yeah, so that I think we're kind of in the same boat as far as like, and I do believe that Tracy McGrady is a lot in his game. I mean, he's even mentioned that, like, he watched a lot of Tracy growing up because he was tall. And he did, I don't think he knew he was going to become, what he was going to become as far as like shooting at that height. But I remember watching a few of his AAU games as far as like highlights when he was with like playing against Blake Griffin and stuff like that. And he was shooting threes at that point. And
Right.
he was letting him. It wasn't like he was just some big guy. They stuck him in the post. No, they let him be Kevin Durant. They let him be a guard and develop every aspect of his game. So I think that helped out a lot. But I know you have a different opinion on who you think might be the best shooting guard. I'm sorry about that. Small forward to score.
Yeah, well, I think it's an interesting conundrum that Larry Bird played in the 80s, and dominated that era of basketball. I think Larry Bird, can you imagine Larry Legend in this era, wide open, basically just one-on-one on an island against his defender. And then if and when he beats that defender, because you can't touch dudes in this era, his playmaking ability to create shots. And I know we're talking scoring, but I just feel like in this modern day, you put Larry Bird, with his ability back in the day to create his own shot, I think we might be having a different conversation. I know he's white and he's unathletic compared to like these elite specimens, but I think Larry Bird, what separates him is his mental ability to just create offense in general. And so I just feel like his shooting ability back then, he paved the way for a lot of guys. And, he's not going to beat you with just elite athleticism, or length or size or speed. He's going to outthink you and out create you. And so I just feel like Larry Bird's kind of, it's a tough spot because he was in such a difficult era. And it was a different game back then. But I would love to see what Larry could do in this era. I think it would be similar to what Luka Doncic is doing numbers wise. But I think Bird is a bigger, better shooter, and plays, a bigger position. So I think he'd be putting up ridiculous numbers in this era personally.
Oh, I would agree with you too. I mean, when we talk off camera and stuff like that, I hold Larry the legend. Larry Legend.
Larry Legend.
I think he's I think he's in my top 5. I've told you that.
Right.
But I mean, no, I mean, hell, he was probably bigger, stronger than Luka. I mean, people would probably say no, but you got to imagine the hits Larry was taking back then. Granted, a lot of people say that's just bully basketball. That doesn't really apply to today. You're right, it doesn't. But for him to take the hits he was to fight on court, and back when they were playing with letting you play with blood on your jersey.
Yes.
He was still out there getting buckets. A lot of people didn't respect his game until he went out there and really gave it to you.
I mean, he felt disrespected when he had a white player guarding him. I love that.
For sure.
A white dude can't guard Larry Bird, straight up. That's just facts.
And what's crazy is that he literally played a whole game, not literally played the majority of the game just left-handed. I think he had 21 or 24 points just with his left hand only. And he was quoted saying, "I'm saving my right hand for the Lakers." And I mean, you're not seeing anyone do that. Like, you're not seeing anyone just go out there and just play strictly with just their offhand and dominate still.
Right.
So I would agree. I would put Larry probably 2 or 3 greatest small forward scorers. But like, as far as like I said, efficiency for me, I mean, I think his career average is maybe 24. And granted, he also went to college and probably I think it was probably 5 years, because he did go to Indiana, sat out the next year because he didn't really like playing for Bobby Knight, and then went to Indiana State. And he took a bunch of bums from Indiana State to the Final Four to play against Magic Johnson. So, I mean, you have to be somewhat great to do these certain things.
He was definitely transcendent for his time, one of the best of his era. I would have loved to see if he didn't have the back injuries on the Dream Team. If he could have been at his peak on the Dream Team, that would have been insane to see him in that lineup, at his best. Obviously, we're 90s babies. We weren't even privileged enough to really see him in his prime live. But being the basketball savants that we are
We
in a
are.
sense, I've gone back and watched a lot of Larry Bird. And maybe if we're talking overall player, this might be a different conversation, but from a pure scoring standpoint, his limitations of athleticism and speed probably are behind Kevin Durant just by default. It's sort of like the Paul Pierce conundrum. If he was coming out, in today's drafts, like he was never elite athletically.
Oh
And
yeah, for
so
sure.
it's like, how far do you drop a guy down because he doesn't have the potential, like the ceiling, even though he's got to be smarter, take better angles, be more disciplined and more creative to, be able to thrive on the wood against those dudes who are crazy athletic. But I think that's what separates Larry Bird from, your average player, average scorer, because he was transcendent. Whoever he played against, he had the utmost confidence. I believe it was the 3-point contest or whatever.
Oh yeah.
He goes in and just starts talking shit
Well,
because
both
he
of
knew he was
them,
going
he's
to win.
back to back.
Right. So like from a shooting standpoint, and it's not that he wasn't athletic, but he had all the gifts and all the tools to be able to put the ball in the basket.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
And I don't think this is really, this is probably unpopular opinion, but hell, you would say he's probably better than Magic in the sense that they would even back then they were saying they were identical players. When one did one thing tonight, the other one had to top the other one the next night. Larry Bird was even though we're talking about scoring, he was
Right.
just as great a passer as he was a scorer.
Right. Which makes him a really good player overall.
No, for sure.
And he played D as well. He was a
For sure.
hard-nosed SOB. So I just want to give him his credit. But comparing him to Kevin Durant, it's obvious.
You're gonna take
KD's.
Durant.
Yeah.
I mean, and then like I said, I'm not. You may want to fact check. I'm not too sure how many scoring titles if Larry had any. But a great scorer. Also, too, he had a 60-point game. Like I think that last season he played.
Who, Larry?
Yeah, I think it was against Atlanta.
I'm gonna look that up. Well, and that's the thing is, like Larry Bird, like you're saying, from a legacy standpoint and a player standpoint, I'm taking Larry Bird over Kevin Durant. But if my team just needs scoring, and I need a number one option at small forward, I feel like you can't not take Kevin Durant just because of his physical gifts. Sure.
All right, I'm about to get into the shits. I'm about to, unpopular opinion. I think that a lot of people would say, no, he's not a scorer. He's a pass first person and all this and that. But no, I think LeBron James is a more of a scorer than we like to think.
It's a hot take.
No, I do. I mean, I don't think you become the third all-time leading scorer by chance. I do believe LeBron's out there trying to score. I don't think he's out there not trying to score. You could say it comes easy to him. You could say like, well, if he really tried, he could average way more than what he does. And I believe that. I also believe that just because he has one scoring title out of his whole career doesn't necessarily mean anything, as for him anyways, because he makes it look so easy. I do believe he's probably a way better scorer than Carmelo, as people will probably say, no, Carmelo's the more scorer out of the two. Carmelo, I think, also has just one scoring title himself. I don't think he has multiple.
Okay, I'm gonna let you finish your point before I rebuttal.
No, you can, but LeBron's literally the more efficient player. And this is coming from someone who's not really big on LeBron. I think he is a great player. Don't get me wrong. And also, genetics played one hell. Like he won the genetic lottery.
He won over everybody ever. He's one of the most athletic people ever.
For sure. But, he's never not had 20 points per game his whole career, like for an average. I mean, he's always averaged somewhere around. I think his career average is like 26, 27. And I don't think, that's just what I believe. And you could just see it. He's easily one of the purest scorers we see, and we claim that he's not a scorer. I think he is. Like I said, you don't become the third all-time leading scorer and not try to score the basketball and be as efficient as he is.
I think I saw a graphic the other day that said he has the most consecutive games of double-digit points or 15+ points or something in a row. It's over 1,000 games in a row.
I think he passed Jordan a while, like 2-3 years ago.
Yeah, he's basically the difference in games played. I mean, LeBron basically scores double digits every night, night in and night out. And that's a hot take, saying that he's not only one of the best scorers of all time, but that he is a scorer, more of a scoring minded player than everyone wants to basically make him out to be just a playmaker at this point.
I would think so.
Now,
I mean, see it. I mean, well, sorry to cut you off. One more. Yeah, like he does get his teammates involved. He does cause a lot of people to, crowd him whenever he does drive to the lane. But he doesn't have that killer instinct as far as like what we claim Jordan and Kobe to have, or like Kevin Durant to have per se, or Kyrie Irving. We don't give, or Larry Bird. We don't give him that. We like to give him magic.
right.
I don't think he's nowhere near magic. I think he's a mixture of a lot of people. As far as like when you analyze his game and put his game together, just how big he is, how fast he is. He hasn't stopped. And I just think that he really does score with ease compared to a lot of people. Like I said, it's not, you don't become the third all-time leading scorer, maybe even second. I think that first is going to really be pushing it. But right. I think it's close. But go ahead.
Well, my thing with LeBron is he's obviously a really talented player. So you talk about efficiency in scoring. And the way I see LeBron, if LeBron has a night where he, shoots 9 of 13 and he ends with 26 points, whatever the assist and rebounds are, I want to know what the majority of those shots were. Were they dunks in transition? Were they layups? Were they off a pick and roll with no help? Because to me, there's a reason why down the stretch of ball games, especially important ball games, that he relied on Kyrie Irving and Dwayne Wade to take those final shots, because he can't manufacture points in a half-court nitty-gritty setting like those two players can. And so for me, I think he's limited offensively from a move standpoint. If anything, I think he needs to play more bully ball, especially in this era. He settles way too much for jump shots. When he needs to just put his head down and do his little, attack the rim, spin off of it. And I think, if anything, his most impressive trait is his athleticism and longevity of said athleticism. It's an absolute feat to have lasted this long. He's had one major injury, a few years back on the Lakers, where, his whole career he's been healthy. He's taking care of his body. And coming into the league out of high school, you're going to put up numbers, in the long run. So he's naturally going to put up tons of points and be on all those leaderboards kind of a thing on the all-time rankings. But when I really break down what a scorer is, I don't think he's as talented or skilled, I should say. Maybe he's more talented, but he's not as skilled as some of these players we're talking about. I just think his moves repertoire relies mostly on strength and athleticism and not enough on craft. Now, he has developed that kind of midi post game, and a three ball. Obviously, in this era, you have to have that. And so he's put the work. He's not skilled, but when you say that he's not, you say he's a better scorer than Carmelo Anthony, I think that's high. I wholeheartedly disagree with that.
That's fact though. He's the third all-time. Carmelo's barely cracking 10 in like another year or two. He's at 12 or 11 right now.
But that's also how many years you play, how many games you play, what your situation's like. I mean, that's like so-and-so.
I can't say that for Carmelo. Carmelo, everywhere he's went besides his last 4 years, he's been the man. Right. He had the keys. He's put up numbers, but look where he's at now.
Well, I feel like if Carmelo was on Denver and competitive every year and then went to a big three, and then won championships and everything, like if his situation like in New York was god awful, he had to put up numbers, and he was the
that's
box
his
office.
fault.
And it is his fault in a sense.
Yeah.
And everyone, he probably anticipated getting multiple stars. Amari didn't work out, because of injuries and whatnot. But I do feel like Carmelo just straight up pound for pound is a 100% better scorer than LeBron. And you're seeing it now in his role in Portland. The way he can manufacture points, even at this age, when his athleticism has been zapped. Early on, those Nuggets days.
I would say he was also like, I would say he had the athleticism of somewhat, not as much as Larry Bird, but kind of similar, because he wasn't crazy athletic.
Right. And yeah, it's above, I don't even want to say it's average. It's a little bit above average. He's had some pretty impressive posters throughout his career, mostly back with Denver.
Right.
But the way he manufactures points, and I watched him, behind the scenes workouts and stuff of his footwork and how he goes about breaking down his defender. His mid-range game is, top 3 all time. I think that's undisputable. He's got a 3-ball in transition. He can get to the rack. I feel like he's a perfect. Now he doesn't have a ton of other like parts to his game. He is a scorer through and through. Like, I mean, if we're talking LeBron or Carmelo, it's LeBron as a player. But from a scoring standpoint, Carmelo is practically unguardable. And especially 5, 6, 7, 10 years ago, this dude's a walking 25, 30 points a game.
So is LeBron.
But it's the way they manufacture points. And no, it's the way they manufacture the points. Because if he's getting locked up by like Lou Dort or whatever his, a week or so ago, if he has good defense, like what we saw against the Mavericks in the finals that one year, if the defense swarms and doesn't let him just attack and finish at the rim, LeBron is basically another guy out there. He uses his strength and athleticism to get points. And when you take that away, he has no counter because he's not as skilled as Carmelo. Carmelo doesn't have the strength and athleticism, so he has to score all of his points off of counters and being creative against his defender. So to me, from the eye test, and you can pull up numbers, let us know in the comments because I don't have, all the numbers in front of me, but Carmelo is just pound for pound a 110%, 100 times better scorer than LeBron, way more creative and gets his points in a plethora of different fashions.
He's more crafty.
100%. Well, and Larry Bird is
crafty.
LeBron is on this list by default, like Bill Russell is on the list of greatest centers of all time.
And I'm not saying LeBron in any way, shape, or form just has his now I think he has a repertoire. He could like
a little bit, yeah.
Does the 1 foot fadeaway. He has a 3-ball now. He shoots from the logo like it's nothing at this point.
He shoots. Does he make it? I don't know. He does shoot.
He's hit like 7. He had games where he had like 7 or 8 threes this season in like multiple games.
I know a lot of people who go to the rec center and shoot, but that don't mean they
now
make
we're talking about bums to the greatest players of all time.
LeBron, to me, yes, he has developed a 3-ball. He's developed a midi post game. He's developed some wiggle around the rim because he's not just punishing dudes. But, that happened in year whatever he is in now. He's been able to rely on that athleticism and strength his whole career, which if it works, don't fix something that's not broke. I get it. But again, you saw like against the Mavericks, and you can't necessarily do that against him when he's got a big 3 his whole career. And the thing about LeBron that really irks me, and this is a side note, is when he goes to teams and then they assemble a roster around his strengths. So there's no excuse for him not to win because they're plucking all the great role players, all the great shooters and defenders, 3-and-D players to surround him with. So what happens? You have 3-point shooters wrapped around the key. He turns Chris Bosh and Kevin Love into just exclusive 3-point shooters, which frustrates the hell out of me because Chris Bosh and K-Love were really good on their respective teams. So LeBron gets the pill, and then he gets to basically have a 5-out, wide open, maybe pick and roll scenario to isolate whoever the smallest guy or weakest defender is on the other team. And then, so now his matchup is either the weakest defender with no help side, because you can't help when you have shooters on the rest of the court, right, or he just basically barrels all the way down the and he scores a lot in transition, but in the half court, he basically just puts his head down and goes to the rim. And if you do help, he kicks it to a shooter. And then in crunch time, especially in the playoffs, he doesn't. And again, this is a hot take because a lot of people probably have facts. They have a little note sheet in their phone to pull up. Oh, LeBron against the Pistons where he went bananas. Like there's a lot of, I'm not saying he's never been clutch, right, but when you have to manufacture points at the clutchest moments, he has deferred because he doesn't have that ability to create scoring from anywhere at any time because he's not as skilled a scorer. And then that's kind of why the narrative plays into him being more of a playmaker, because I don't think he's got the plums as a bona fide scorer. I mean, and yeah, he doesn't have that kill switch, but he doesn't have those plums. He don't got the plums. Now, Joe Johnson is 100 times more clutch player than LeBron. That's facts. That's facts.
I don't. Well, first of all, we got to step back a few points, but that's not fact. I think LeBron does have more clutch time, whatever, whether or not it be on the smallest defender or not. I'm just giving him just that. But we're not debating who's the more clutch player at crunch time. If that was the case, none of these players would be in there. Neither would your boy Carmelo, neither would Braun. None of these players would be in this crunch time if we're talking about crunch time.
It's Joe Johnson
conversation. And hold on, we got to go back to this 3. Carmelo has the top 3 footwork of all time. First of all, the 3 best scorers of all time that we're not even talking about above Carmelo is Jordan, who has the best footwork of all.
Not arguing that.
Second best footwork of all. Then we got Kareem, who has if we're going to consider his skyhook the best, think of the footwork that goes into that. And he has both hands. Then we got Hakeem the Dream, who would consider that he's probably a better footwork than Jordan. I can't that Carmelo having the top 3.
Those are centers. If we're throwing centers out there, yeah, Hakeem Olajuwon probably has the best footwork as any center. Like you said, Kareem as well. But I'm talking wings and guards. Carmelo Anthony with that jab, he's got every counter. He can pull up left, pull up right, just pull straight up. He can back you down, fade away, fade away.
But he's not top 3.
He's behind Kobe and Michael. He's number 3.
No, there's Durant. There's James Harden. Whether or not you count his traveling anything, they're still giving him all that. You got Ginobili. You have Dwayne.
He flops too.
Great footwork.
He flops too. He brought the Euro.
I still wouldn't consider Carmelo having top 3 footwork, but that's your opinion.
And my opinion is right on this. Listen, you're gonna tell me Manu Ginobili has better footwork than Carmelo? That's asinine. I'm
not saying. I'm just saying I would not put him as top 3.
But I think you could. I think you want to say he is. You don't want to say he's top 3, but you want to say he is number 3 behind Michael and Kobe. Because
no, I said Durant right before.
I think Carmelo has better footwork than Durant. I think Durant has better range in when he can pull up and everything because of his length.
Isn't that footwork?
No, in the sense that he doesn't.
When you're coming up the court, you have to be able to counter that.
Yeah, but he doesn't need to counter as much because of his length allows him to get shots off anywhere else. Like Carmelo needs.
We've seen Carmelo take 10 steps and they didn't call it travel. I can't give him the best footwork of all time. No.
And are you throwing in James Harden's like arm hooks in his footwork too? Because that's some bullshit when he hooks your arm and then takes.
I'm not saying none of that is. I'm saying if we're going to go by today's standards too, that counts. The refs aren't calling none of this.
So put Larry Bird in this era and see what he gets done. That's what I'm saying.
See, he's over here stirring the punch bowl. That's it.
Like, let us know. I think Carmelo is 100 times better to score than LeBron. I think it should be between Carmelo and Kevin Durant, personally. That's just me.
Oh, I agree. But I still, LeBron has to be thrown in there.
He does.
Because I'm not talking, because Carmelo's not clutch. You can't say he's clutch at all. You can say you might want the ball in his hands, but he hasn't proved nowhere that he's clutch, that he's going to get you a game winner. He may have a few game winners in the regular season, but he hasn't made it nowhere where it counts. And I can't say he's clutch.
Clutch.
Go ahead.
Oh, well, one more thing about, you're stirring the punch bowl with that 12-incher of yours. With LeBron, give me Kawhi over LeBron from a scoring standpoint. I don't want to sleep on my boy Kawhi.
No, Kawhi, actually, if we're going to talk about stepping up your game, so is Kawhi. Kawhi stepped up he was not considered a scorer at all.
Right.
He put himself into a score, so I will give you that. I do agree. I like watching his game as far as like on offense, because now I think maybe after his last stint with San Antonio, watching him in Toronto in those playoffs, throughout the whole playoffs, actually, I was amazed by how he would pull up at 3 or pull up for a jumper. I was like, man, it's going in. So like I felt every time I'd see him play, I felt confident in him. Like, oh, he's about to make this. He's about to be cash.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever he shot. I mean, you have to have discipline to become a scorer like he's become. Pure scorer, no, I wouldn't say that at all. But I would say he may have worked his way into becoming that. But yeah, I agree. I would throw Kawhi in there.
Well, and for me, Kawhi's probably my favorite player of this era currently playing right now. And I think what he was able to do with Toronto, it was almost, I felt like I was watching like what it would be like in a sense if Michael Jordan played in this era, because he plays at his own speed. He's got huge hands. His mid-range, I love, full disclosure, I love the mid-range game. I think it's like the purest form of basketball, even though I'm a three-point shooter personally. But I love watching a player. Yeah. Follow me out, 3-point phenom. But that lost art of pump faking. You don't go all the way to the rim and try to lay it in or dunk. To be able to isolate and find little pockets in that 3-hole. Shout out to Art Dye in the middle of the lane. To get those, just being unguardable, create that separation from the mid range, and then Kawhi showing that he has a 3-ball and that he can take over in clutch moments. I think if with the whole load management thing, and also Kawhi doesn't really get up for the regular season like that, but when it gets down to crunch time, Kawhi is one of the best scorers in the league. Barring his bubble performance last year, him and Paul George played. It was gross. How poor they played down the stretch of when they got knocked out. But give me Kawhi over LeBron, and I'll throw one more name at you. I'll throw 2 more names at you. Paul Pierce is a better scorer than LeBron, and Danny Granger is a better scorer than LeBron. Facts.
Now you're really stirring the punch bowl and putting some liquor in it.
I'm putting some Mountain Dew in that bitch.
Danny Granger. What's his last name?
Danny Granger is a better pure scorer than LeBron has ever been in his career. Throw in Rudy Gay as well. Fuck it.
Is he considered a small forward? Oh, I guess
so. For this argument, he is.
Okay.
But
I don't know, man.
Danny Granger over LeBron.
He did average, I think, a few 25, like maybe 1 or 2 25 points a game seasons. But if he never got hurt, I think we have a different conversation with him. He did put up a bunch of numbers in Indiana. Sucked that he had I think it was a knee injury, and at that time they weren't fixing your knees like they're fixing them now when he hurt his knee. It was totally different surgery back then. I think they had to like scrape everything out your knee, and you had to deal with it. Now they're able just to the microscopic do it, kind of snip, and you're good. But yeah, I think he was one of those players that suffered for the time that he played in, because medicine just didn't reach where it reached at. I think that definitely messed him up. He wasn't the same player at all when they got Paul George. I think if he was, I think that would have been a totally different. I think we talk about LeBron different. I don't think they win 2 championships. I think they at least win 1, but not 2. I think that because that Pacers team, if they had Danny Granger,
oh man,
because they took the Heat to 2 Game 7s, I think, back to back.
And Danny Granger was a bucket at the peak of his prime. Like you said, he had a couple around 25 points per game seasons before the knee injuries, and a little T-Mac syndrome, a little Penny Hardaway, Grant Hill syndrome, where injuries capped how long we saw his peak for. But you throw him, he never really found that role back on the Indiana when they started to go over to Paul George. But no, Danny Granger, a bucket, man. Like,
and I would say he was one of the first 6'8", 6'9" to really like be athletic like that too,
and shoot. You know what I mean? Yeah, like
the
athleticism
sure.
And the 3-ball. And I don't know where we're putting Rashard Lewis. What position we're throwing Rashard?
We're not throwing him in any of this.
We'll put him
in shooters, maybe. We're not throwing him in any of this.
Give me Rashard Lewis.
Had a 20-point average career season. Maybe 18, 19, but he didn't have no 20.
I'm just saying, if we took away the layups and dunks from LeBron, I would love to know his true shooting percentage. I'm not an analytical guy, but
then again, but that's going for everyone. You take Carmelo's layups and post ups. He's trash. He's not. He might be
No,
a 3-point shooter early in his career than LeBron, but LeBron's definitely caught up. I'm pretty sure. I don't know the statistical value of both of them at this point, but I'm pretty sure because Carmelo was a gunner. He didn't have
100%.
he had a high volume of shooting, but he didn't have great 3-point shootings percentage.
No, but he could
Yeah,
get
I mean, he was a
hot.
better mid-range shooter than LeBron.
100%.
But I mean, he's not as efficient. I mean, if we're gonna throw that, I mean, that kind of goes for Kobe too. And I'm a Kobe guy. They say if Kobe shot a little less, his percentage would be way better. Then he wouldn't average what he averaged. So I get that, but
Well, and my thing with that is, yeah, Carmelo Anthony is a gunner. He's got a ratchet. He's a burner on his arm.
at the glizzy.
Yeah, he's glizzied up right when he walks into the arena. And we knew that about Carmelo, and he was on bad teams, and so he forced shots just like Kobe did for those years without Shaq, between him and Pau Gasol. And so you got Carmelo just gunning. And we do hold that against him in a sense because he's inefficient in a lot of ways. But I will say this: when he gets hot, there potentially is no one more unstoppable than Carmelo when he gets super hot. You know how some players get hot? Carmelo gets like climate change hot.
I would agree, but he's still not consistently giving you 25, 26 a game in today either.
Well, see, but it's opportunity.
You could say situational or not. He's only a year out of the league. Not a year out of the league. He's only a year in college compared to LeBron, and they entered the league at the same time, and he's barely the 12th, 11th all-time scorer. And I'm not saying, and that's a great accomplishment. I'm not saying that he's not a great scorer. I'm just saying, I think we sleep on LeBron not being put in this conversation of not being one of the greatest scorers of all time, and instead of him being a playmaker or facilitator. I think that really gets slept on his scoring. Whether or not, however he gets his points, because if we talk about, if people are going to throw James Harden as being one of the greatest scorers, greater scorer than Jordan, granted, we don't say that, but people do say that, then you got to throw LeBron in there, because I don't see how James Harden could be the greatest scorer just because he shoots a bunch of threes.
Right.
He does hook his own arm, but like I get that's just taking advantage of the rules.
If we're talking football, LeBron's, like when I talk about wide receivers with people, who's better, my wide receiver runs a route and he needs to be faster and stronger and be able to catch the ball than the DB. So yeah, LeBron would be better in that regard if you're just talking about like just the actual stat of putting the ball in the basket. But if you're talking about how they do it, like I said, you take LeBron's dunks and all his shots, like it's when he has to do anything but put his head down and go to the basket, he's inefficient in my opinion. I think that when the defense has him settle for a jumper, they win that rep. And Carmelo, I pulled up the stats. He averaged over 20 a game from his inception in the league all the way through his Knicks career, which was from 03 to 2016. He averaged over 20 points a game for, 13, 14 years. And then he had the OKC stint, the Houston stint, and then these Portland years where he's playing off the bench. Or even if he starts games, like obviously he's not the number one option, number two option. He's more like the number three. So he has taken his.
He's not the number three.
Right. So his role is to score, but he's not the number one option anymore. And you see when he does get the ball down the stretch, he can still fill it up. If anything, LeBron is just, it's duration. You know what I mean? Like if you play 400 more games than somebody, you're going to have more points. Like that's just how stats work.
No, that's true. But it's not like he's averaging 10, 15. He's still averaging 26, 27 a game.
And
5 this season, but I think his career is 26, 27. He hasn't slowed down. And with Carmelo, granted, he has to change. He had to change his game. And that's just to the detriment of the player he is. He's, like you said, he's literally a pure scorer. But better scorer, I can't see that. I just can't. This conversation of LeBron not being mentioned in these greatest scorer conversations is really slept on, and I hate just saying he's a a playmaker and he makes the right decision. I don't think he makes the right decision. I think he just, like I said, he's not a closer. We've talked. I think we both agree on that. He's not a closer at all.
Well, go ahead.
I just think that his repertoire of scoring has gotten a lot better. Like he's able to be a post player, not necessarily he's going to back you down, but he can do it. He's going to shoot that 1 foot fadeaway. We saw his mid range get better in the Miami years, and we saw his 3-point shot get better within Cleveland and LA now. And like I said, he hasn't slowed down. And he just right now wetted a 1 foot 3-pointer off, like fadeaway to the corner.
What, like live?
Yeah, well, I got the game on right now. But, and you're not, and like I said, a lot of this does come with genetics, is him being durable and everything like that. But you can't fault him for that. Like I used to be one that used to fault him, like, well, he's just this and that. Well, it happens. At this point, you can't stop it. You just got to kind of agree with genetics that he was given that. Like I used to be like, well, no one else is going to be like that. Well, you're right. No one is, but he's lucky enough to have it. In the same way with Jordan. There's probably only one other player like, because LeBron can't fly like Jordan, but to be as dominant on the wing is probably LeBron.
Well, and okay, so I looked up his stats, and if you're just going off the eye test of the stats, then he's putting up 27 to 30 a game every year. Like, so the eye stats look great, but when you watch him as a basketball player, his game is very simple.
But isn't that the beauty of it? Like we call Dwayne Wade's game really simple, but yet he was super efficient, and really like my boy Zay, shout out Zay. He was saying we don't need to talk about the 3-point shooting. He was able to get to the bucket. He was able to get to the basket. He was able to hit that mid range, and that's true. So I just don't think that really applies. You know what I'm saying? If you're going to talk about just getting to the bucket.
Well, I think also too, if you're saying LeBron's an efficient player, like with Dwayne Wade, the reason, I mean, we both agree that he's a prolific scorer, but his weakness of his 3-point shooting doesn't allow us to put him in that upper echelon in that Kobe, Michael, Joe Johnson type conversation. But I'm saying so LeBron, let's not act like his 3-point shooting is a strength. Can he hit threes now? Yes.
Yeah.
But can he hit 7, 8 in a game in this era when every possession's in three? Right. But over the course of his career, again, situationally too, it's been perfect. He's been ideally, he crafts the team. As much as he may say he doesn't have he doesn't write off the players who comes and goes. No, the management and everything revolves around LeBron, and having a wide open space, like I broke down earlier, allows for easier scoring opportunities. And if you just watch LeBron, the way he manufactures points, yes, he's got more skill later in his career. But again, it's a lot of easy baskets. And let's not forget, in the era that he's playing with, you blow on him, you touch him with your pinky, you might get teed up for a technical foul. Like and one of the other things that really pisses me off about LeBron, again, great person, never met him. I'm not trying to knock LeBron. And it's funny because you're a Kobe over LeBron.
And for everyone else, I'm not a LeBron guy. I just think that the narrative of him being such a player first person,
playmaking.
Yeah, I get my bad. I'm getting this all mixed up. To be a distributor first, pass first player. There we go.
Right.
That is false. I just think that's really false. I don't think that he's a pass first player. I think he does try to look to score. I think that the narrative that they try to claim he's Magic Johnson, I just think he's a scorer. And I think that to have 3,000 points or 30,000 plus points, that's not easy. Like, you know what I'm saying? I think that he's getting slept on as being a scorer and being more portrayed as a passer distributor. I don't think that's true at all. Like, there's somewhat aggression in you to get to the rim or something to have 30,000 points. You know what I'm saying? 100%. I don't think that comes easy. If that was easy, then everyone would have it. Our top 15 that we consider the greatest of all time would have 30,000 points, but there's only 5 people.
But so one thing, again, I think that goes to more longevity than anything else. But like you said, you're not putting up 8 points a game for 80 years to get there. I get it. But the thing that really irks me is how much of a flopping, whining biatch that he can become on the court when he doesn't get the calls that he wants. Now, why I say that, again, LeBron's not a bitch. I'm not trying to get a trigger word up in here. Like, he'll beat my ass. He's 6'8", 290, whatever his metrics are now. But if you're a scorer and you rely on the refs, at least if you don't make a basket and you cry and pout and whine and where's the foul, to me, that means you're looking for excuses as to why you didn't put the ball in the cup. And that irks me big time, because especially in this era, because the reffing is already so damn soft and it's so offensive minded and offensive heavy. It completely, how do you even play defense in this era? I don't know. Especially when LeBron just puts his head down, initiates the contact, goes in, throws up some bullshit, doesn't get touched at all, and then screams and pouts and then flops on the ground like a fish, like a Magikarp, to get the call. And so to me, that shows, again, how unskilled a lot of his points are manufactured. And when you just barrel your head in there and try to score, and again, the defense can't touch you. So a lot of times if he misses, he can even get that second rebound, that putback boss, put it in, like how Zion scores a lot. And I'm not knocking the guy for scoring points, but we're nitpicking. we're nitpicking because I'm not going to act like Carmelo doesn't have to break his defender down and he's more like he scores more on the perimeter in tougher shots. You're saying LeBron gets easier shots. It's not holding against him, but he can't make those more difficult shots like Carmelo and Kevin Durant can, period.
Oh, I'm not, like I said, I'm not arguing that. I'm not arguing that Carmelo is crafty and has an arsenal, but LeBron's still a scorer. Like, whether or not it's easy points, you could say Shaq's whole run when he was at his peak were easy points. You could say that. Granted, not he was getting hacked and didn't complain about it, but you could say that because he was so dominant, they were easy points.
But that's a different position. In my opinion.
No, it is, but I'm just saying in general, if we're gonna talk about easy points, well, let's get to the shit. I'm just saying, if we're talking about easy points.
Well, I was actually gonna
easy points.
I was gonna say, because we're about at the 40-minute mark, and we could just wrap up small forwards on this episode and then dig super. I feel like centers is gonna be crazy.
Oh no, I think I'm down for that, because I think that's definitely gonna be. I think it's gonna tie this whole thing up.
Because let's not like just. To go back to small forwards, wrap this up. Did LeBron travel and whine like a bitch?
No, some dude just airballed a free throw. Nets, your boy, number one, whoever he is.
See, so I'm taking, just to clarify here, and you're not a LeBron fan.
Oh no, yeah.
Are you taking him as a scorer over Paul Pierce?
I see. Are we taking like to get us some buckets? Like if I had to put money on someone getting me 25 a game.
Think about Paul Pierce's prime.
Who's taking the last shot? Like what are we talking about? Because like I said, if we're talking about last shot, I'm taking Paul Pierce.
100%. You remember him talking trash to Al Harrington? I'm about to bust this in your ass.
Oh, and he did. And not to mention when he cashed out Glass with the Wizards.
Mm-hmm.
Oh no, was it against the Wizards? No, it was with the Wizards.
Dude, Paul Pierce is a bucket, even though we like to say like
Paul Pierce is he's one of my favorite players. I don't put him in the top 10 or 15, but he's one of the a great player that I look up to and I try to admire. I admire some of the stuff. I try to throw some of his stuff in my game.
Yeah.
He has a crazy step back. He thinks I don't agree with his fucking commentating. He sounds ridiculous. And I think he does say the things he says, and so that we can make an argument to put him in the top 5 of whatever, but he's never going to be that. Paul, you got to stop that. But no, he is a great player. He's an all-time Celtic. I think he should have just tried to finish there instead of in the Clippers, like how KG finished in Minnesota. I think Paul Pierce should have tried to find a way to at least finish his career there. No, I hold Paul Pierce to high regards also. I mean, I think a lot of step backs today, maybe you could think of someone else, but I do think that Paul Pierce didn't originate it, but I did think he made it somewhat for as slow as he was with the ball, but he was so crafty. I think he made it easy for people to like really utilize the step back. I think James Harden, you would consider James Harden not crazy athletic, right? I wouldn't say he probably mirrored his game after Paul Pierce, but I would say he took the step back and like, okay, I can do something with this. He had to have, because James Harden makes a living off his step backs.
Yeah, no, James Harden has his bags packed, ready for travel every time he picks up a basketball. Paul Pierce's step back is not a travel.
No, it's not.
When you gather off
I guess we should clear that up too. Yeah, like his is legit one like pull up. He's gonna hit you with the one like off.
He's gonna hit you off. He's gonna plant that foot off the bounce and then go 1-2 for the bounce.
Both ways, right and left.
Mm-hmm. Whereas James Harden is a rock you, lean back, and then go 1, 2, 3, sometimes 4, 5. That's a damn travel. That's a great flight plan that he has.
But my whole point of saying that is that I think he did help out with a lot of people utilizing the step back. That's my only point.
And to me, like, and again, I think a lot of people of this era think of Paul Pierce as the dude who wanted the tour like Kobe Bryant, the farewell tour, and Draymond's like, bitch, no one's here for you.
I think he did, but like he wasn't going to get that. Like I said, Paul Pierce is not. I guess you could put him either shooting or small forward, but he's not any top 5. I think he's a great scorer. But no, I'm still. If you're telling me if I had a bet who's going to have 25 a game, it's at least I'm going to put my money on LeBron. But if we're going to say who's going to win the game, I'm putting on Paul Pierce.
Right. Well, and I think like it's a lot of players or a lot of people in this era think of Paul Pierce as the guy like later in his career, like with the Clippers and stuff like that. But I think, and even the Nets.
Well, I think our generation knows Paul Pierce for being the killer he was. I think a lot of people, younger people, would definitely think Paul Pierce is the bum that played on the Clippers and the Wizards and averaged like 8 or 9 points.
So yeah, and I'm not talking about that.
No, I'm not either. I'm talking about
him and Antoine Walker were absolute buckets on the Celtics. That's why they traded Joe Johnson in his rookie year, because they were going to the playoffs for the first time in X amount of years, and they needed Tony Delk and Rodney Rogers to come over and provide some depth. And so Paul Pierce in his heyday, like there's a reason why he was the number 1 option on the big 3 when KG and Ray Allen got there. Because the dude, he was still a bucket and he could score at every level, and his step back wasn't a travel. He could shoot threes, he could score. And yeah, so one of the things though that, like I said, if he was coming out in today's era, he'd be overlooked because of his lack of elite athleticism. And, I think that it's a shame that we don't put more of a emphasis on skill over potential in this era, because then those guys like Paul Pierce, like the Danny Grangers, they're gonna. Danny Granger was above average athletically as well, but you're gonna draft Gerald Wallace over Paul Pierce just because of what he can do physically.
Yeah, today you definitely will.
And then Marvin Williams is like that.
A lot of people don't even know Gerald Wallace.
Right, John Salmons might take him over LeBron if I'm trying to get buckets. That's actually I'm lying. I wouldn't take Salmons, but but a lot of these guys are interchangeable 2 threes. So, when we talk about like Rudy Gay, is he a 2 or is he a 3? Some teams that he might be in that 2 position, like LeBron right now has never played shooting guard technically, but he's 1 through 4. So yeah, there's a lot of those like swingman type players that I would take over LeBron if I need, but like if I'm just talking a pure skill standpoint, but I hear what you're saying, where you can't completely disregard the fact that LeBron scores easily around the rim and a lot of his buckets are simple. You can't just disregard it. We're not talking who's the most skilled scorer, but I mean, I think everyone
agrees. If you're talking most skilled, then obviously LeBron's not in this.
Right.
We're talking later years, but
I think
the greatest scorer of each position.
Right, and everyone I think is going to agree with me that Carmelo is a better scorer than LeBron. Like,
I think they're wild. I think people will say that, but like I said, I think y'all wild. I think y'all wilding, but I'm just here to stir the punch bowl with my dong. That's it. Maybe throw a bit of hooch, but that's about it.
I mean, you can drink out of that punch bowl, but we're all gonna go sip our Kool-Aid over here, our Carmelo Kool-Aid, He's just a better
man.
scorer.
No, but I'm pretty sure I'm gonna say that. Whatever, like you don't know shit. No, I just see what I see, and I think that we're sleeping on LeBron being more of a scorer than a facilitator, and I think it's shown. And I don't think, like I said, he hasn't slowed down as far as scoring goes. Whether or not they're easy, but then again, we're not in the league, so how easy can those points really be?
I think I could get 8 points in the NBA game right now.
Per game?
Like in one game, you put me out there in the corner to shoot 2 threes. I drive to the lane, get fouled, hit 2 free throws. I can score 8 points in the league right now.
A game?
In one game.
I'm not talking about per game.
In one game. But so just to recap, because I thought we got into a lot of great, crazy punch bowl. Like I'm seeing your schlong just splash the water in front of me here. We both agree that Kevin Durant is the best scoring small forward in this discussion.
For sure.
Right. And then
I would say
Larry, and then Carmelo LeBron. I think we both agree on that.
Yeah, I think that.
So LeBron's 5 or even lower. 4 or even lower. We'll throw Granger in there. We'll throw Paul Pierce in front of him.
We're talking about craft and being like having all this arsenal. Then no, LeBron's not in there. He obviously got that later on, but we're talking about scoring, getting you a bucket.
Right.
I'm not saying in crunch time or anything like that. I'm just talking about getting a bucket. LeBron's showed that he can do that.
I think in crunch time, he is cramping up and letting someone else shoot the final shot.
Oh, no, and I agree with that. And I think that's why I knock a lot on LeBron for that. I don't care about the 7 times or 7-0 or 7-8 or whatever he has last minute buckets. That don't matter to me.
Right.
The balls to keep taking that shit.
And do I dare put Devin George over LeBron? Scoring
Devin George.
I just throwing out random. Do I Darius Miles over LeBron? No. So yeah, no, I get it. I think it's a hot take. I want to know what other people think.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, please like, comment, subscribe, hell, dislike if you want. But you know what? Like I said, I'm here just to stir the bowl.
And our next one, we're going to get into those power forwards and centers, specifically centers. I think it's going to be another hot conversation. Are we going to have any more hot takes where we need more punch, to be here because we're all donged up? I don't know. But I can't wait to get into that conversation and, get out here for episode whatever we're on now. We're cooking out here. That's what I'm saying.
Oh, we out here eating. We're trying to eat. Daddy got to eat.
Got to put food on the table next to that punch bowl with your dong in it. Shit.
All right, y'all. Once again, comment. Tell us how good of a job we're doing or how shitty of a job we're doing.
And if you made it this far, say LeBron's not a fucking good scorer in the comments. Come on now. We all know that shit's just stirring. Shit. Appreciate y'all tuning in.
Yeah, for sure.